Good afternoon. My name is Natalia Caridad Perez Rodriguez, and I'm a junior FIU honors college student. I'm studying history and psychology, which is my favorite, with a focus in child psychology. Prior to this class, the majority of my experience in research and in psychology was focused only around behavioral problems in children. But during this class, I developed an interest in how gendered play affects children's ability to process emotions, and it's now part of my proposal for my honors thesis. And I'm glad to present my New York Times project on mankeeping. The New York Times article, Why Women Are Weary of the Emotional Labor of Mankeeping, by Catherine Pearson, discusses the invisible, relational work done by women in heterosexual relationships in order to maintain their male partner's emotional needs. This labor comes as an effect of the so-called male loneliness epidemic, where men feel they cannot share their feelings with fellow men and friends, and default to unloading this burden onto women in their lives, primarily their partners. Their partners become responsible for not just their social calendar, who they go out and who they hang out with, but as well as discussing difficult topics with their partners and calming them down and helping them process and regulate their own emotions, which is not a reciprocated effort. A quote from Tracy Daglish in the article reads, "The reality is, no one person can meet all of another person's emotional needs. Men need these outlets as well. Men need social connection. Men need to be vulnerable with other men," which is a topic that has been commonly brought up in psychology in the past few years, post the Me Too movement. Relevant course concepts. The article, as instructed, tied heavily into the topics we've discussed in class, beginning with Chapter 4, The Meanings of Difference. A lot of our issues in relational work come from stereotyping women into being more emotionally attuned, aware, and sort of dubbed relationship experts by their partners and by society at large, where men offload the emotional labor of having to maintain a relationship and having to know the right things to say by considering women these experts and, well, she knows what she's supposed to be doing. Oh, she knows what she wants to do. And I've always found it particularly clear in, I think it's the fourth season of Friends, when Chandler and Monica start dating, and he regards her as his relationship quote, despite being equals in the relationship. And that really gets to the crux of what we're going to discuss with this article. Chapter 6, Gendered Identities, Childhood and Adolescence. A lot of these issues also are very, very clear in the way that children are socialized, not just by their parents, but by peers and other adults, in which women are encouraged to participate in play that is nurturing or relationally focused, while boys are pushed into roles that are more objective oriented and rely less on interpersonal communication. Chapter 8 discusses commitments, women, and close relationship. All of this, of course, impacts both men and women in their personal relationships and leads to this imbalance in the amount of emotional labor done by either party. This could be seen in all relationships outside of marital, spousal, and boyfriend, girlfriend, all of those relationships. You could see it in friendships. I myself have noticed it a lot where I have friendships with male friends who all of a sudden, within just a day of knowing me, are unloading their deepest, darkest traumas. And I'm like, oh, I met you once, which of course, I enjoy supporting and caring for other people and friends, but I have noticed a trend in male friends using me as a sort of pseudo therapist, yet not speaking to their much closer, much more long-term friendships, male friendships, about these same issues. Chapter 4, The Meaning of Difference. In the article reads, that particular role has now named mankeeping. Angelica Puzio Ferrara, a postdoc fellow at Stanford, I'm jealous, took this term from social media, which describes the work that women do to meet the social and emotional needs of the men in their lives, which is not just their partners, but their fathers, their brothers, their male co-workers, etc. They not only support them during the daily, everyday stressors and challenges, but also with deeper lifelong issues and traumas that they are attempting to work through, And they also encourage them to meet up with their friends. Oh, hey, why don't you go out tonight? Oh, you haven't seen the boys lately. Why don't you go out? They're in charge of not just their own social life, not just their social life as a couple. Oh, whose friends are we hanging out with tonight? Who's getting invited to the barbecue? They're in charge of their partner's individual social life. And which is why a lot of times you see recipes and videos online of like, oh, cooking for my husband and his friends to watch the Super Bowl together, or here are my favorite recipes that I make for them, or here's how I get my husband to go outside. Like they're talking about a small dog and or child. In the course, we see this a lot in chapter 4, where it explains how women are seen as experts in emotion and therefore expected to manage, again, not just their own feelings, but that of their partner as well. Which means in a discussion in which the woman is bringing up her own emotions and a gripe she may have with the relationship, she not only has to do a good job of expressing and communicating how she's feeling, but also aid her partner in understanding, processing, and reacting to this information. Women are also held responsible for keeping a relationship smooth and running. They plan dates. And even if they're not planning the, hey, we're going to be there at 9 o'clock, I'm paying kind of date planning, they encourage the dates like, oh, I think we should go out more often, or I've really wanted all those little hints that we drop. Oh, so and so got her their girlfriend flowers. I love flowers so much. All of this sort of hint making in order to maintain their own satisfaction in the relationship is a big part of this emotional weight. And the weight of the relational work can be a major source of stress for a woman who, the modern woman, also has the same responsibilities as the man in that she may provide for herself or both of them through work. She has her own career, she has her own family responsibilities. And now, on top of that, has to bear not just her own emotional burden, but that of her partner. In chapter 6, we discuss gendered identities, childhood and adolescence. In the article, it explains how a lot of the institutions and spaces and places where men used to just show up and find a group of friends, like churches and protesting and just going to work, they don't exist anymore, partially because of the post-COVID landscape of online working and remote jobs and just a loss of third spaces on a deeper cultural level. And men interviewed in the article said men used to be able to put themselves in these institutional settings and it just happened around them. It's not happening as much. Men have to do more and be more assertive. Men have to go out of their way, perhaps a little more, in order to find these groups of men in which they could feel comfortable sharing their own emotions. Now, you could argue that the same applies to women who have also been affected by a loss of third spaces and difficulties perhaps making friends at work if most people are online or you work from home, or even I'm taking an online class right now. That sort of situation, but women seem to have handled it in stride, continuing to develop on deep interpersonal relationships with female friends, companions, and family members. And this ties into the course because this is actually set in stone from quite a young age. By about fourth or fifth grade, boys and girls have segregated themselves by gender, and on top of that, have the added layer of having formed different styles of play and friendship. As I explained before, well, not women's, girls' play focuses more on, well, as children, they play pretend, they play family, which is very much encouraged by their family members and by parents because it's considered nurturing play, or they play with Barbies. And I remember acting all kinds of telenovelas. She cheated on you. Oh no. They beat each other up and they disappear. And now what are we going to do with the children? It's this whole long dramatic game, but it all focuses on emotions and different ways of expressing them and understanding society as a whole and communities and relationships and these networks that form women woman girls play focuses on mapping this very, very early, whereas boys play is either centered around an activity. Let's play Mario Kart, let's go play flag football during recess, tag, hide and go seek. It's very objective focused and often very, I'm not sure how to express it, but very isolating in that there's not a lot of opportunity while you're playing basketball. Hey man, how have you been? I heard your grandmother passed away. There's not a lot of it's not opportunistic for social interaction unless they go grab a beer after, grab a drink, let's go get some water, a smoothie, whatever they want. Boys' friendships and girls' friendships patterns continue into adulthood where women are more likely to confide in each other, to share with each other, to go through the ups and downs of life hand in hand. I'm waiting right now on a friend who's coming over because she's had a really rough day and she wanted to hang out and watch movies. And that's the sort of relationship that we have and have nurtured since high school. And this could really explain the difference and the disparity between the emotional supportiveness of male versus female friendships. Chapter 8, Commitments, Women and Close Relationships. Everything we've talked about before disseminates into all of our relationships, whether or not we're aware of it. The article says mankeeping is an extension of kinkeeping, which is the work of keeping families together. And researchers have found that, and I'm sure we found it in our own families, that this responsibility is strongly on women. It's women who plan family reunions and get-togethers. And oh, so and so's in the hospital. We got to go visit him. I've got to buy gifts. I'm the aunt. Oh, it's your mom's birthday tomorrow. What are you doing for your mom's birthday? Oh, look, you could take her out to brunch to this restaurant. They coordinate on a sometimes massive level the schedules of not just themselves, but of their children, of their spouses, upcoming responsibilities, events, holidays. They are responsible for the well-being of not just their partner, not just themselves, not just their partner, not just their children, but of their entire family union. And in the course, it talks about how men receive this benefit in a very measurable way. And in a large part, this is because of the emotional support provided by women. Men, for instance, live somewhat shorter than women do, and they are more likely to receive end-of-life care as they age from their spouse than women are from their spouse. Women are expected to also bear the burden of caregiving in many situations of their spouses, as I mentioned, and of their aging parents who tend to rely on their daughter rather than their son to care for them in their old age, which could impact not just the woman's well-being and her busy schedule, but it could impact her career, it could impact her relationship, and it could impact her entire life in general. Taking care of an aging parent or an ailing spouse could be a huge, huge stressor on a woman, on anybody, really. A lot of considerations we could take for the future begin with educating men about the emotional toll and constant relational work that women have to do for them, because in many cases they may just not be aware. In the article, the boyfriend of the girl who originally brought this up was quoted explaining that he thought she just liked it better that way. And it comes from a very baseline misunderstanding of each other in which we believe that men and women are inherently one way or another because they are men and women. And because his girlfriend was a woman, he saw, well, she's nurturing, she's kind, she's like my own mother, most likely, and placed this responsibility upon her because he thought she was better suited to it. So a lot of this could be resolved by just educating the general population, particularly heterosexual men, on the importance of making this an egalitarian relationship in terms of relational work. It is also important for women to set boundaries in relationships. They don't need to come to you every single time. You could sometimes sort of outsource that that need for socialization to their friends, to their buddies, to their brother, to their family. They have to expand their social circles, but the responsibility of reminding them to expand their circles, reminding them to go outside, go hang out, cannot rely simply on their girlfriends, their wives, and their fiancés. It has to come from within. They need to become more affirmative and understand that looking for platonic love and friendships in coworkers and relationships in their community does not come at the cost of their romantic love, which is an issue that was brought up in the article. And as a community in general, we really, really, and this is a big passion of mine, need to work together to bring back third spaces, regardless of age and gender. There's a lot of focus when talking about third spaces on bringing back third spaces for teenagers and young people, which I understand because there's obviously a lot of financial constraints with, well, we want to go to the movies. Well, how much does a movie cost these days? That's not affordable for honestly most people, much less a teenager. And the price barrier that has been placed on a lot of things that used to just be like, well, we can go hang out. Where are we going to hang out? There has to be a push for third spaces for all genders, which are for all genders and for all age groups, which are quickly disappearing. And these used to come in the form of churches and clubs and civic work organizations and volunteering, and these all still exist, but they are losing popularity. And I think there needs to be a communal movement in order to bring them back. But like any movement, it starts with yourself. Go out and volunteer and bring your friends with you. Talk to the people next to you at the bus stop. Don't just sit in silence on your phone. If you see somebody who needs the door open, oh, thank you. You're in the elevator, start some small talk. I think as a society, we have become very disconnected from one another, which women have sort of tolerated better because they have been socialized from children from being children in order to seek out relationships in which they can confide with each other and support each other, whereas men who have not received this socialization are struggling a bit more. And I think if just as a society we put ourselves out there more, put down our phones and just talk to people, then I think this could have a very, very great impact on not just the male loneliness crisis, but the human loneliness crisis. This is my final project, and I've really enjoyed this class. I hope you have a wonderful day.